What's up, guys? We're Double Trouble.
Spooky edition. Ghost. Edward from Twilight.
No!
Alright, you guys. We're going to start off strong with me doing announcements because we've seen what happens when this kid does
Hey.
Okay, bring a friend. If you don't have a friend, make one. You'll get money.
We literally giving coming with friends.
Anywho, we're like literally giving you money.
Money!
Anywho, baptism this month, October 1-3. I think I did that the wrong way. You guys are, anywho, just so I can fix that for my video.
What do you guys think of the new background? And the new table? And the new decorations?
I think it's special. I'm gonna get them back. And I know where to buy a good amount of paint, glue, and chicken feathers. That'd be better than your chicken nuggets.
Core team,
yes.
Join
you got
the core team. The core team is amazing. Do you know why, Katie?
Why? We're there! Woo! Yeah, that's about it. I'm kidding, you guys. Core team's fun.
Yes.
If you like to be involved, join. We need more middle schoolers, please. October equals what, Spencer?
Halloween!
No.
Trunk or treat, my bad.
We were so close.
Stop.
So close. This kid, Halloween! No! Trunk or treat! Thank you. And this year's name is blow-ups. Okay, no, sorry. Maybe more interesting.
It is blow-ups.
It's blow-ups. We're gonna blow up and you're gonna dance. That is all you have to do. I mean, we would like help. What even is like our float gonna look like? Get that off me or I will strain your wrist and...
This is...
Found it!
Noggin! See ya! Woo.
Let's bow our heads and pray. Let's bow our heads and pray. Get our hearts ready for the message. Shh. Father, we just invite you to join us for this time. We know that you're here, God, but we want to feel your presence. We want to sense that you're moving. And I pray especially for people who are doubting, who are unsure about you and not sure if they believe in God or they're wrestling with their faith, that some of the things we talk about would just reinforce that you are true, that you are real, and we can trust you. I just pray that you'd help us to lock into the lesson, to hear what you would have to say. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. We have been going through a series about young Sheldon. Many of you have heard of young Sheldon. It's a TV show. And our lessons are not based strictly on episodes. Those of you who have seen all the episodes know this already. It's just kind of a fictional story that connects with the character in order to explore whether or not God is real. So, at this point, for people who weren't here for the first week, what do we know about young Sheldon? What do we know about young Sheldon? Yes?
He's exploring the, proof about if the Bible is real.
Yeah. He's jumped into different things about the Bible, whether it's real or not, and we established with some different experiments and some different research that Sheldon doesn't know if the Bible is true, but he knows that we can be confident that what the authors wrote is the book we have in our hands. It's very important. It hasn't been changed. What else do we know about young Sheldon? He's very smart. I mean, he's so smart that I think he's 10 years old and he's in high school. Yeah? What did you say? He has pretty eyes. Oh, you're getting a little crushing over there. Oh.
I think you're too old for it. He's 10.
Oh.
Age is just a number, guys.
In the Big Bang Theory, when he finally gets a girlfriend, he gives her a contract about that thick. It's like 50 pieces of paper that she has to sign about the whole agreement about their relationship and stuff. It's hilarious. Anything else we know about Sheldon at this point? He's kind of socially awkward. He really likes to follow the rules. Yeah? He really wants money. Yeah, put that picture up, by the way. He really wants money for Spider-Man 252. First time there's a black suit, and it costs 60 cents, which this takes place in the 90s in East Texas, and 60 cents is a lot more money back then. Yeah. Yep. So, our story begins with young Sheldon in the comic book shop, staring at the Spider-Man comic. There's 3 left on the shelf. Just 3. Now, he asked his grandma already, and his grandma said, sure, I'll give you 60 cents if you rub my feet for 30 minutes, which he obviously said, of course not. That's a hard no. What is he going to do? He talks to the comic book owner, and they're selling out quickly. There's not shipments coming in, so he's getting a little stressed about whether or not he's going to get this comic. Finally. Now, have you ever done this before, by the way, where like you're a kid and there's a toy you really want and you just stare at it at the store? Or like, this is what Hudson does. Every time we go to the store, he wants to go back to the toy section to look at the same toys we've looked at 3 times a week for the last 6 months. So you understand this, like you've been there, like there it is. It's so close. It's got to be mine. So he's walking home, trying to figure out a solution to how he can get this comic book. And then he sees the old man walking outside his house with the dog. And he gets an idea. Maybe he can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So watch this. Sheldon says, hey, mister, I liked your questions about the Bible the other day. And the old guy responds, honestly, truth be told, I really don't like talking about the Bible. It's too painful. And Sheldon says, well, what do you mean? And the old guy says, nothing, just forget. And then he starts to walk off. And Sheldon says, wait. In desperation, I have a proposal for you. And the old guy says, yes. And Sheldon says, you mentioned the stones in Revelation, last book of the Bible. If I can figure out what's going on with the stones in Revelation, will you give me 60 cents? The old guy goes, I got to hand it to you for persistence. You'll never figure it out anyways, so sure. Great, Sheldon says. This is awesome. Could I have a clue? The old guy smiles, sure. Pure light. And then he walks away. So, it's time to hit the library to figure out what's going on. He wastes no time because there's only 3 comics left. He's got to get on this. So he reads the book of Revelations, finds the passage about the holy city in heaven, and there's 12 stones listed in this passage. Okay, here's the stones. We found them, but we don't know what the deal is with them. At the library, he reads a book called Gemstones of the World, or whatever articles he can get his hands on. But to his frustration, there's nothing in any of these geological books about pure light. What's the connection? He notices on a rack of books, you know those racks where they're putting books away? You know, they wheel them around and then they put books where they go. He notices on one of those racks, there's a photography book. Interesting. So he walks over and picks it up, and the photography book is all about lighting. Apparently in photography, there's a lot of discussion about lighting and how to use lighting. So he's like, maybe this is where I need to look when it comes to pure light. So he starts getting every book on photography and lighting that he can, and finally discovers that there is a recent discovery, and recent like last 50 years, like this generation, that light could be focused. So light disperses very quickly and easily, but in the last generation, scientists have learned how to focus it more and more and more. Do you know what it's called when they make a super focused light? A laser, exactly. A laser, which in the scale of humanity is a fairly recent discovery. He also finds that if you do something similar to a laser with a similar kind of lens, it becomes an even more direct light, not dispersed. It's called cross-polarized light or pure light. That's what they call it. So that's what pure light is. What does that have to do with joules? Sheldon has no idea. But he does have a plan. Now that he's got the structure for how to create pure light, he's going to go back to the school, borrow some equipment. He's got some stuff in his garage. That's where he works on all his projects and has his train. And he creates a device that will shoot pure light. And then he thinks, I'm going to go to the jewelry store and maybe they'll let me shoot some jewels with pure light. What could go wrong?
Would you let me do it, Katie? Probably not you.
Somebody 10 years old with a bow tie, that would fly. For those of you who don't know, Katie works at a jewelry store, so yeah. She knows whether or not this next part is fictional. So he goes to the jewelry store and asks if they can bring out some jewels to shoot with pure light. They agree. I mean, he doesn't look like a thief. He can't see over the counter. So they bring out a variety of different stones, a whole bunch of different stones, and the owner says, well, what stone would you like to start with? And Sheldon says, why don't we start with a diamond? That makes sense, right? And what on earth would happen? Don't show that yet.
Trevor.
What on earth? His legacy lives on. We had a sound guy about a year ago that people would pick on for no good reason. He's such a great guy. He's a good sound man, but it was like our inside joke. So now you're all in on it. What will happen to a diamond if you shoot it with pure light?
It'll break.
And what happens is shocking.
It refracts.
What happens is shocking.
It blows up.
The diamond goes black. It has no color at all. Then they decide, well, let's try a ruby. Ruby goes black. No light at all. They've never seen anything like it at the jewelry store. They're like, what is going on here? So they start doing it again and again and again and make a list of different jewels. At one point, they throw an emerald in there, and the emerald explodes in rainbow colors. So go ahead and put that slide up. So they discovered that diamonds, spinel, so see the stones on the left? That's what they look like on the left. On the right, that's what they look like under pure light. Gray and black. Interesting. Of course, Sheldon makes a list as he's going through all these different stones, and it's one or the other. Either they go black or they explode in color. Okay? So he makes his list, and then he goes back home with his list and reads Revelation, and his jaw just about hits the floor. Because, go ahead and put up this next slide. In Revelation, it says, the wall of the city was built on the foundation of stones inlaid with 12 precious stones. First jasper, second sapphire, third agate, fourth emerald, fifth onyx, sixth carnelian, seventh chrysolite, eighth beryl, ninth topaz, 10th chrysoprase, probably, 11th jacinth, 12th amethyst. Next slide, please. All 12 explode with color under pure light. Now, how on earth could the writer of Revelation John on the island of Patmos, 2,000 years before pure light was even known to be a thing, be able to list 12 stones that would explode in color under pure light and not a single stone that would go dark in the holy city. That's shocking. Could it be inspired by God? Because God knew. You know what this means, Sheldon thinks? It's time to collect my 60 cents. That's the important thing. And he was never in doubt, but now he's got to wait for the old guy, right? He's got to find the old guy. He's got the information. He's solved the mystery. So he goes home on a Saturday night and waits by his front door, front patio, for the old guy to come, but the guy never comes. So he goes in and goes to bed, and then the next morning, since his family goes to church, he is in Sunday school. They're going through the book of Psalms, and the pastor reads something very offensive to Sheldon. Very offensive to Sheldon. He starts out with Psalms 14:1. That's 19:1 too. That's the next one. Is there one before that?
No.
Oh, okay. I'll read you 14:1. Oh?
14:1?
Yeah, there it is.
Like 2 slides ahead.
Oh, okay. Only fools say in their heart, there is no God. They are corrupt and their actions are evil. Not one of them is good. And Sheldon raises his hand. Wait a minute. Some of the most brilliant minds on earth don't believe in God. How can the Bible say only fools don't believe in God? That doesn't make any sense. And the pastor says, the word fool in this passage doesn't mean stupid. It means morally foolish or ethically foolish. In other words, a morally corrupt person wants to live as if there's no God. They could be very smart, but they don't want to answer to God, which makes them morally a fool. Sheldon says, are you saying that atheists are morally corrupt? And the pastor says, everybody is morally corrupt. That's why we need faith in Jesus to do a miracle of change in our hearts. Sheldon says, hold on. So Jesus changes people's hearts, so Christians should be perfect. And he thinks to himself, this one won't be hard to disprove. And the pastor says, absolutely not. Christians make big mistakes like everyone else. We still have sin. But here's the difference. Really struck a chord with that baby. He's feeling conviction right now in its little heart. Here's the difference between Christians and non-Christians. A Christian deals with sin but should be motivated to fight it, where a non-Christian can just side with it, and who cares? Now, sometimes that fight will not go well for the Christian, and that's the part where we need forgiveness and we have to get back up and get back after it and trust Jesus. Other times it will go great. But as Christians, we fight the corruption with God's help, not that it is completely removed until we get to heaven. Then they get to Psalms 19. The heavens proclaim the glory of God. The skies display his craftsmanship. Day after day they continue to speak. Night after night they make him known. Sheldon raises his hand. Yes, Sheldon. The universe doesn't have a voice. He's very literal, remember? The universe doesn't have a voice. How can it say anything about anything? And the pastor says, look, this is a poetic metaphor to express how the universe points to a creator. If you were walking through the woods and came across a painting, you would think to yourself, an artist did that, right? Obviously. And the Bible is arguing that when you look at creation, it's like a painting. It should cause us to think there was an artist or a mind behind it. Sheldon says that sounds like something people who don't know about physics would say. And the pastor says maybe. But maybe some physicists aren't looking closely enough. Romans 1 even says this. For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and the sky, and through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power, and his divine nature, so they have no excuse for not knowing God. The universe doesn't just paint a picture of the Creator. It paints it so clearly that when we stand before God, we will have no excuse to have not believed in him. Sheldon is still stuck on the comment about physicists not looking closely enough. But he says, you know what? I will look closely. How does that sound? He heads to the library and checks out a bunch of books because he can't study at the library and watch for the old guy at the same time. So he's going to bring him back to the patio and read up on how the universe fits together while he's waiting. Now, he's a little at odds to figure out how you could come up with a formula that shows whether or not the universe has a creator. So he starts looking at, well, let's just look at what is required to have life. Right? What are some elements required to have life? It turns out to be a really extraordinary question with a ton of surprising answers. So let's just look at a few things Sheldon finds in his research. What is required to have life? So first of all, next slide. Liquid water. A planet that has life must have liquid water. Every carbon-based life form relies on it to survive. Now, here's the crazy thing. It has to have a substance like water that freezes and floats, which is weird because when things freeze, they get more dense, and so you would expect them to sink. If ice sank, we could not have life on this planet because glaciers would fall to the bottom of the ocean. They would eventually freeze more and more and more of it, and it would disrupt the entire ecosystem, and life couldn't survive. So the fact that ice floats is necessary for life. It also has to be stirred. It also has to move. So there has to be evaporation. There has to be rain. There has to be salt water and rivers and lakes. And that whole movement is what makes the earth sustainable for life. Next. The atmosphere. To sustain life, the air has to have a perfect mix. 21% oxygen, critical for every living creature to breathe. 78% nitrogen that regulates pressure and temperature, and a little bit of carbon dioxide, because without it, you would not have photosynthesis, plants couldn't survive, and the whole thing falls apart. And that is the exact mix that Earth has. Oh, snap. Just getting heated up. Whoa. Number 3, you have to have a magnetic field. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but many planets don't have a magnetic field. Earth does have a magnetic field, and it protects the planet from harmful solar cosmic radiation, solar wind from the sun, prevents the atmosphere from leaking dangerous radiation to the surface. We happen to have it, and it's perfect. Next. Our planet has to be a perfect distance from the sun. Scientists call this the Goldilocks effect. You guys read the story of Goldilocks? Remember, the one bed was too soft, one was too hard, and then she found the perfect bed. So, if our planet was 1 degree closer to the sun, it would be too hot and everything would burn up. It would be uninhabitable. If it was 1 degree further away, it would freeze and we could have no life. The whole earth would freeze. It'd be uninhabitable. It is in the perfect habitable zone in a distance away from the sun. Next slide. We have to have a perfect climate and temperature, which averages, I think it's around 67, 68 degrees when you average it all out across the planet. And we have to have a greenhouse effect that maintains the surface temperature that supports life. If you know anything about the other planets, they're way extreme in this regard. They're not just a little hotter, a little colder, they're 2, 3, 4, 5 times hotter or colder. So that's what Earth has. Next one, the moon. Earth has to have a perfect size moon, a perfect distance away, because the gravitational pull of the moon causes the tides, which runs the whole water circulation. Now, did you guys watch the eclipse a couple months ago? Remember that big eclipse that happened? Something interesting is that the distance that the moon is from the earth is so perfect for the size of the moon, the size of the earth, and the size of the sun, that when it eclipses, it fills the space of the sun perfectly. And scientists that don't believe in God are like, isn't that amazing that human life happens to be here at a time in our history where the moon perfectly covers the sun when there's an eclipse? Isn't that odd? And it's amazing. But we have to have a moon that size, that far away, to regulate in order for life. I'll shoot 6 more at you real quick. We have to have plate tectonics, where plates shift and move in order to keep the environment working. We have to have diverse chemical elements that fit together perfectly. We have to have a stable gravitational environment so that we're not too heavy or too light. We have to have an ozone layer that protects the earth. We have to have a diverse ecosystem and biosystem that fits together perfectly for life to sustain itself. Here's the crazy one. Anybody know what that bottom right planet is? Jupiter. And what do you know about Jupiter?
It has a big storm.
It's huge. It's huge, and it has big storms. So to sustain life, a planet has to have another giant planet a certain distance away, because the gravitational pull of the giant planet pulls meteors out of space and protects Earth. Thank you, Jupiter. Yeah, and we have it. We have Jupiter. It pulls those rocks out of space so they don't come and hit Earth. And they could hit Earth at a frequency where it would destroy all life over and over and over again. There is, I don't know the exact number now, but I think it's right around 60 or 65 elements that have to be perfect for a planet to sustain life. And we have all of them, all lined up. It's very cool. So Sheldon's reading all this and learning all this, and old man hasn't come yet, but it's getting late, so he decides to go inside and get ready for bed. But as he's going inside, he notices his mom looks distressed about something. She looks like she's going through something, and she comes back out on the porch to have a moment, and he thinks he better check on her because he loves his mom, right? He loves his mom. And so I want to show you this clip of how their conversation goes. All right. The next morning, Sheldon gets up a little earlier for school so he can take a little time out on the front porch to wait for the old guy. When he steps out, the guy is standing there with his dog. Did you figure out the stones in Revelation? Sheldon said, yes. In pure light, the specific stones in Revelation would light up by fire, like fire. How could they know that? The old guy says, I don't know how they knew that, but he reaches into his pocket, pulls out 60 cents, and says, here you go. Thanks, mister. The man taps his hat and starts to walk away, and Sheldon says, one more thing. If you stop by again, should I not bring up the Bible anymore? The old man stops, turns around, is quiet for a minute, thinking about what to say. And he says, you know, my wife believed in God, prayed every day, went to church, the whole bit. I don't think there was a kinder woman on earth who loved God more. And I lost her a couple years ago. I lost her. How could a good God let that happen to somebody like my wife. And then he turns and walks away. Sheldon, processing what he just heard, thinks to himself, he really didn't answer my question. Then he goes back and gets ready for school. After school, he heads straight to the comic book shop, and as he's walking up to the door, he notices that a family is on their way out holding a copy of the Spider-Man comic. But he's like, don't panic, don't panic. There was 3. He walks in, over to the rack, and it's gone. They're all gone. And then he thinks, well, maybe they have some in the back, maybe there's... And the owner says, I'm sorry, kid. They're backward, they didn't print enough. It could be weeks, it could be months. I don't know what to tell you. Sheldon thinks to himself, if there is a God, he really does let bad things happen, doesn't he? So then he thinks, maybe that'll be my next question. If there's a good God, how do bad things happen to good people? And then he also thinks, I'm going to have to visit this comic book store every day for a while. 2 weeks, we'll figure out what happens.